Good morning, everyone. Just waiting for everybody to connect. Looks like we've got a few people joining now, which is great. Okay, we will get started. For anybody that's turns up late for this, you can download this later on demand, and we'll be going through end to end. So I'm Marco, I'm the CEO of Configur, and welcome to the webinar on securing the future, which is about balancing AI innovation and data protection. So this is something that I'm very passionate about. I am somebody who's worked in the sector for the last 18 years in data, and the last 8 years I've been working with AI. And I'm really, really pleased to see the adoption that's taken place over the last 3 years around AI. Obviously, a lot of that's been driven by ChatGPT, but in today's fast-paced society and everybody wanting to get on top of the trends and move ahead of time, there's also some risks that come with that. So it transforms everything from how we operate, how we innovate, and how we make decisions. And this rapid advancement does have a few challenges, and particularly the main concerns are around data protection. So the discussion today is going to focus on a few significant areas, mainly why leaders are a little bit hesitant about AI adoption, and specifically what can be done differently to navigate the concerns and make sure that your AI adoption or implementation is as successful as possible. So by the end of the session, you'll have a really clear understanding of the AI landscape and ways that we can drive innovation. And I think I'm happy to take any questions at the end, but if you want to fire them in, we'll collect them as we go, and we've got a couple of people watching out for those. So the key stat, 62% of leaders are concerned about the security risks around AI adoption. And that, as we said, is because of the booming growth that's led to people wanting to utilize tools. They can see the efficiencies that are coming, but there is a real hesitation amongst leaders as to what might be the challenges and problems for implementing AI. So on the one hand, there is a massive opportunity to get deeper insights, look at unprecedented levels of innovation that we've never seen before. But with that crave for speed, AI integration can have security concerns, and that is actively potentially stalling progress. The fear isn't irrational. It's backed by tangible real-life risks. But many leaders, in their eagerness to integrate AI, are finding themselves hitting pause instead of moving forward. And the reason for that is the security blind spots that are proving a little bit significant in certain case studies, more so than they initially appeared. But also, it's just such an exciting time, and we're going to try and work out how we get through that together. So a few key areas I'm just going to cover, just as what we're going to go into. So why many leaders are afraid, the reasons for those concerns. Then we're going to look at the emerging AI security threats and things that you need to be aware of in the day-to-day use of AI across your business. Then we'll be looking at how you can secure innovation from day one, proactive principles, looking at fundamental strategies and things that can be done. There's also the build versus buy dilemma. So especially for AI governance solutions, what do you build in-house? What do you buy from the shelf? And how do you try and decide and make those decisions? Plus also then there's what we call the innovation plus protection flywheel, very fancy name. But it's a framework essentially that ensures security and agility whilst reinforcing both aspects across the business. And also a little bonus at the end, a little preview into what Abby does as our AI technology. So the core reasons for the hesitation, let's just get straight into those. There's like some specifics as to why so many leaders are concerned, and as we already touched on, it is that 62% is quite a large number. But the main issues are around business intelligence, BI, and workflow, and they're just not entirely anecdotal. So lack of query visibility. So without a centralized audit trail, organizations do struggle to understand who is querying sensitive data or how those queries are being shared. The blind spot is pretty difficult to try and enforce accountability or conduct timely investigations after they've happened. So this is things like use of LLMs like ChatGPT and Copilot and things. Copilot, obviously, a little bit more governance. Things like ChatGPT, less so. Even on business plans. So, how do we look at those, addressing those challenges? There's immature LLM governance. So, things like traditional identity and access management, data loss prevention solutions, things that were typically built around data, they haven't necessarily evolved as quickly for AI yet, and they're not being implemented with large language models as efficiently as they can be. So this means that applying existing security policies to conversational interfaces isn't as straightforward as I think many people thought it might be. So there's a little bit of a gap there and risk there. The rapid tool adoption. So business units are quickly adopting AI to accelerate analytics. They, understandably, we're all excited about, the efficiencies it can bring, but it does mean that sometimes there's a speed amplifying risk situation, and that turns unvetted tools into potential areas for attack. The fear of the unknown. So as AI models evolve, their behaviors evolve, and potentially their vulnerabilities do. So organizations need to look at, the maturity risk models for emerging threats, and how we can look at privately training data, stop things like data poisoning or malicious data injections and different things like that. And we'll come on to a bit more about how to mitigate some of those challenges. And then also the high cost of remediation. So when data leaks occur, the potential risk, if that does happen in an organization, is millions in legal fees, remediation efforts, and also the reputational damage that can impact businesses as well. So we need to consider all of those things. But we can be proactive. So let's have a quick look at the recap of the main top 4 AI threats. The first one is data exposure. So data exposure occurs when personally identifiable information or intellectual property information is accidentally leaked via AI prompts. So for instance, a good example of this is a sales representative might unknowingly paste customer database information into a public AI tool, trying to clean up the addresses or trying to look up some extra information about a business, and inadvertently they're exposing sensitive data. So the impact for that can lead to fines, brand damage, and you are essentially, in some cases, breaching GDPR if you're not careful. The second is prompt injection and unauthorized access. So this involves crafting malicious inputs. And what people do is they will coerce the AI models into revealing or altering data that access that it shouldn't have. So in this case, it could be somebody adding a bit of extra text on the end of a prompt into a chatbot that might have access to a database and telling it to ignore all previous restrictions and bypass that. That would be a very simple example, but it can happen. And obviously mitigating that requires some levels of input sanitization or having roles based on prompts or login information that have access to these external interfaces. Unlogged queries. So the queries that run alongside your standard business intelligence or BI logs. The risk here is things like sensitive information from HR resources or metrics being pulled through a query, and there being no evidence that was ever captured. So, for example, if you have an internal bot and somebody asks a question about their salary, but accidentally they've got access to other people's salary information also because the restrictions aren't clear and the AI hasn't picked that up, they might get access to, for example, senior leadership salaries. You'd have potentially no evidence that ever happened. So it's about making sure that these queries are being logged at an organizational level. And then also, I've touched on it several times so far, but shadow AI usage. So this refers to teams using tools like ChatGPT and things outside of the company firewall. But it does lead to blind spots, very difficult to mean that they don't include data classification, data loss. They're things that are going to leave you potentially vulnerable. So how do we look at closing those off? I know some businesses have just completely closed access to these internally. That's not necessarily the answer, but things that we do need to consider. So to truly innovate on AI, we have to consider these security aspects, but you don't want to be kind of paralyzed by them, being locked down, thinking there's no core way for me to move forward. So there's 4 kind of key principles that if you put them in place, you can start using AI, and you can use it effectively and you can use it carefully. So principle 1, data classification and query permissions. So start meticulously tagging data at the point of even at the point of ingestion, as personally identifiable, IP related, and then also anything that's public fields. So these maps and these tags can be enforced across either AI solutions, even notifying people who are using them as to what level of access they are is a good first step. But finance teams, for example, should they might only be able to see cost columns. Marketing teams should only be able to see anonymized customer segments. There's lots of different options that you can apply. Principle 2, role-based access control, also known as RBAC or insight layer. So when extending access to things like data warehouses, you need to ensure that when interacting with this business intelligence layer, it's never a read-all endpoint. It needs to make sure that access to this data complies with your policies, still has the full access control, and is linked directly to AI, but isn't giving you any kind of clear pass-through that doesn't have any level of access control restrictions. Principle 3, automated compliance checks. So at the moment, a lot of organizations do annual audits to continuously enforce their policies. Defining your security rules is something that should happen in real time. With the evolvement of AI and the evolution of AI, if it's not checking it and validating against your policies in a real-time basis with triggers and alerts, automated workflows that tell you about quarantine, risky queries, things like that, you're going to struggle to stay on top of it. So look at your compliance checks, try and make them as automated as possible, and then try and make them as frequent as possible, ideally in real time. Security also as an accelerator. So design the security to be in line, which means essentially that you're directly having that pass through of security in every single interaction, from anything that touches your personal identifiable information, anything that has queries or self-service wizards, or anything that accesses ticket information, things like that happen across your organization. Ensure that you have that full security layer that controls all of the access levels. So a common question that comes up when looking at software against building, against buying it off the shelf, is what are the pros and cons? Well, first off, building your custom governance. If you have larger teams and you have the resource in-house and you've got mature data engineering teams, they're probably already considering this, and it gives you that full access control. You can implement at your own pace. You can ensure that it's tailored precisely to your unique business requirements, and it's deeply integrated from end to end with your proprietary systems. The key thing here is it's longer overheads typically to implement. Time to value is often the biggest struggle, as I just said, but ongoing maintenance and compliance certification burdens, you have to really stay on top of it. So that is obviously swings and roundabouts, but it'll take longer. You have more control. Buying off the shelf, this is where the options for rapid development, like let's think weeks, not months and years, to get your access in, and that gives you access to systems that have everything from ISO, SOC requirements, data loss prevention built in, access management, popular identity access tools, DLP security. Obviously, you're getting that off the shelf. It's already been built. It's already been focused on. As long as you do your due diligence when buying off the shelf and making sure that your providers have all of this information, that will have a lot of benefits for you. The drawbacks, obviously, there's typically less customization, and the reliance on roadmaps and subscription costs. It means you have an ongoing overhead, but typically it's just a different pot of money that's being drawn down to. However, when it comes to time to value, working with speed, working against your competitors, it's going to give you that competitive advantage. which is a key thing. So when weighing up your key criteria when making a decision, the key thing here is how quickly do you need secure AI insights and access to AI across your organization? Is it something that's going to really benefit in terms of overall time savings? Is it something that you have the in-house team to be able to build yourselves and is already part of your roadmap? And even if that is the case, there's often elements that you can bring into the mix to make sure that you're adding advantages as you go. So we're going to quickly talk about this innovation and protection flywheel. So this is all about the 5-step framework that looks at security against agility. So step 1, assess the risks. Begin by scoring your sensitive data, personally identifiable information. Make sure that you map out different roles and how they can interact with each of the data sets. Use heat maps, if where possible, to visualize high risks areas across your organization, and that can help drive access patterns and various different things. So, for example, if an analyst in a region frequently exports large financial reports late at night, then this should be flagged because it's not something you want to get notified on a regular basis. If that is something that doesn't happen very regularly and then happens out of the blue, that is something that obviously you do want to detect. So it's about having those kinds of levels of access control as well. Template policies, leverage pre-built policies, things like, common roles, data analyst, executive, partner. There's a lot of baseline access rules that you can customize already built around these kinds of access levels. So for instance, an executive template might say something like automatically mask personal identifiable information and limit raw export capability by default, because they don't need to go to those levels of detail. Now, you might argue, well, they can have access to that. Well, yes, they do, but they still don't need it because typically they're looking at a more holistic view. So it's just limiting it across the entire organization in various aspects where possible and what levels of access they need. So next step is automate enforcement. So every AI data-driven query or general query should be checked against policies in real time. Violations can trigger automatic mediations such as masking or throttling access, and it can also send alerts to security teams. So for example, an unapproved download of customer level data would automatically be redacted. Therefore, that can never then be used to import into any kind of AI process. That might be a level that sits outside of AI, just on your data. So it doesn't have to only be the AI access levels. This can be across the entire business. Optimize velocity. So use intelligence, mask personally identifiable information, and allow low risk queries to go through without manual approval. You don't want somebody having to wait on access levels on every single query. So it's all about making sure that you can segment data, make sure you give publicly access, more detailed access, and ideally something like a guide to marketing in the business, like a wizard, would probably not have access to personally identifiable information. And in that case, you don't need to restrict levels of access to be able to have people interact with that compliance bot, essentially. And all about closing the loop. So everything you learn from each step of these process will continuously feedback and provide information, scoring policies, templates. It's all about creating a self-fulfilling improvement cycle that protects both your innovation, but also keeps your high level of security in place. So just as a quick look at what we do at Configur, we offer AI business intelligence, and it's designed to effectively provide instant access, effortless insights, and it's aimed at any level of data literacy in the business. And Abby is our AI tool that sits on top of the Configur platform and makes all of this super simple. So we no longer need to build complex dashboards or provide extensive coding. It eliminates bottlenecks and provides you with straightforward answers to your data. And this isn't just about speed, it's about making AI insights truly secure whilst managing your existing ecosystem. So we believe that essentially AI should empower and not have a risk exposure. So I'm relatively tight on time. I'm not going to play the video. There is a video here which we've circulated on social media, on LinkedIn, and we've got some extra really cool videos coming out very shortly as well. which tell you more about the concept of Abby and things that we're helping businesses do. So as a final kind of recap on what we offer as a service, the Configur platform's built on sort of 3 core pillars. It's the Configur platform, and that covers everything from consolidating data, single source of truth, role-based portals, and full collaboration, but with control. Your conversational AI assistant that covers everything from natural language, smart insight, visual insight, hyper-personalization for your organization, but never exposing data externally. And then the fully managed onboarding and how we support all of our clients when doing the heavy lifting, customer portal access, and being able to accelerate time to insights, which is obviously very, very key to get people on board as quickly as possible, get as much benefit as soon as possible. So that's going to conclude the webinar. I will put any questions out there if there's any questions from the floor, essentially. I'm going to stop sharing this for a second and add my face a bit larger. But if there's any questions at all, please fire them through and I will be happy to answer them. There are a few people on the call who are being quiet, which is not a problem. I don't mind that. We can all finish a little bit earlier. Do I recommend any AI specific tools? Yeah, I think there's several tools that, I mean, to be honest, the list is endless. I will actually put a LinkedIn post out with some of my favorite AI tools. Obviously, I think many of us have made use of ChatGPT. Many of us have used Claude, Gemini. They're all really useful generally, but some of them have got really sort of niche specific benefits to using them. And there's many reasons that people use multiple LLMs across businesses. What I will do is put a post out on that and give some breakdowns into the reasons for that. In terms of general AI tools, obviously, I'm going to say Abby's fantastic. But there's, within video marketing, general CRMs, BI, there's so many tools that are out there. I'm going to put I'll put a post out and share that with everybody so that you've got full access to that information. If there are any other questions after this, please do follow up with me. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn or email me. If you send an email to info@configur.ai, I will follow up with you afterwards. But thank you for those of you who have joined the webinar. Much appreciated. And I'll speak to you all soon. Thanks.